Absolutely.
All right, so welcome everyone to the PCIP Virtus Leadership Podcast. This is numero uno for 2022, and we have the great, the famous Mr. Dan Hicks, executive extraordinaire with InEight, and he's been a friend of Virtus and a friend of mine for several years now. So Dan, where do we find you today? And thank you for joining.
Well, thanks, Mike. I'm not sure I can live up to your intro, so you've set the bar high. So hopefully not to disappoint on that front. But yeah, thanks for taking time today. So I am in where InEight's corporate headquarters are in Scottsdale, Arizona. Not in the office today, working virtually like a lot of us have been over the last 2+ years. But yeah, a lot of fun. Looking forward to having a conversation with you today and seeing where this takes us, Mike.
Cool. And we'll definitely get into learning more about InEight and what you do, but give us a little background. Where are you? I think I know. Where are you from originally? And kind of give a little background to, quickly where you grew up and how you ended up where you're at.
Yeah, well, I ask myself that a lot. So maybe a bit of a non-traditional start. I literally grew up on a working farm in the little northwest corner of the state of Iowa. Which I've determined later in life, it's far too cold there for me to live there as I've gotten old and my bones hurt. So literally grew up on a farm in Iowa. I've had a great opportunity to work with just some great organizations, across the states. I've always been in kind of that go-to-market, let's go drive, grow companies. That's my passion. It's the build and the grow. And that's what I've done for probably more decades than I care to admit. But yeah, a lot of fun. And again, that is my passion. Really fortunate to be part of a great organization in InEight. We're a 30-year-old startup, and I can explain that later if it's relevant. But that's kind of where we're at as an organization. Physically, where I'm sitting, and just a very quick background of where I came from initially.
Gotcha. And how long have you been with InEight?
It'll be 6 years in May, so it seems like a flash. Frankly, it seems like 6 months, and I mean that in a good way. A lot of fun. We've had a really nice, steady grow throughout that time, as we've brought our products together and really are solving problems that aren't solved in the owner and big contractor construction project capital world. So been a lot of fun, but yeah, it will be 6 years in May, which is just staggering to me.
Yeah, time. We were talking earlier off the camera. It's amazing how time flies, and it's crazy. 6 years, unbelievable. So give us a little background on what your role is at InEight. And then I know in your heart, you're still, you love helping close deals. So just kind of give a high level of what your day-to-day role is, and if it's what you thought you'd be doing when you were, 15, 20, 25 years ago.
Well, the short answer to the last part of that is no, but very fortunate and blessed to be in the spot I am right now. So yeah, for sure, didn't envision this at all. So InEight is kind of an accidental company. I have a parent company that is a very large construction company in the US, Kiewit, large builder. You might not know the name, but you quite likely have seen kind of this yellow truck running around big construction projects. So Kiewit's at the time CEO and now chairman, who's also the chair of my board, which is a great pleasure, had a vision as he was kind of starting to wind down his CEO position at Kiewit. And that was to help the industry and move the industry forward. Like a lot of us tend to do as we get a little longer in the tooth from a professional standpoint, wanted to help advance things and didn't like the status quo of where the construction world sat. So the short of that is underused in the construction project capital world, a huge underuse of technology. Advancements were things like Excel, so really cutting edge stuff, and a lot of pencils and a lot of whiteboards. So Bruce Grucock, chairman now of Kiewit, had this vision of building technology in to make better decisions, have one source of truth, build efficiencies into labor and projects and planning and risk. So set out to go buy something to help the company do that, and quickly found out it didn't exist. So there are, in our space, 2,300 some odd point solutions. That is something that solves one problem, but not all of the problems across the world that sit in the project capital space.
Gotcha.
So net of that, Kiewit made a decision to buy an estimating project or software. So that is, say you're building a big project, you're building a dam or a big rail project or an airport or what that might be. Estimated that up front. You got to get that right because there are hundreds of millions and billions of dollars involved in this. So they bought a company that was based in Scottsdale. That's why we sit here today. And after a year, they really liked it and saw it helping, but then said there's a lot more that we need solved for in the technology space. Let's go buy some more stuff. Well, they quickly found out they didn't exist. And where it did exist, none of that was integrated. So your data didn't pass from the very early risk and schedule planning through estimating through the field execution, and then turning that project over at the end. None of that existed. So begrudgingly, Kiewit said, let's build that internally. And then as I started in May of 2016, started to round out that kind of portfolio of 8 real disciplines that we solve and said, are we going to keep this internally or do we make it a commercial offering? So with Bruce's mantra of he wanted to help the industry, he said, let's make it commercially available. And that's not all just because he's kind of benevolent, which of course he is, but he also wanted to, get the good feedback. He has a great quote of, we don't have a corner on all the good ideas. So other successful companies in that project capital space have input and ideas. So it's the, rising tide floats all boats, old analogy.
Yeah.
Literally what it was, Mike. So my entry into the company was, oh shoot, we're a big construction company. We're going to take the software company commercial. What the heck do we do? So they made the good or bad decision, depending on your perspective, to bring me in. And that's really my world. So mine is the go-to-market piece of that. How do we tell the story to the market? What is our marketing message? How do we sell it? How do we position it? How do we price it? And then part of my group is also that team that implements it with our customers. So it's tell the story, sell the story, and then make sure it gets embedded the right way to keep those customers long-term. So a quick fly through kind of how I got here, what we do, and high level how InEight came to be.
And ideal client is probably what, smaller versions of Kiewit, much smaller?
Yeah, we've shifted that. So it used to be that smaller contractor, and we've really shifted up into an enterprise model. So a contractor, 100 million or more in revenue, really hits well for us because we have an enterprise class software that doesn't always resonate as well with that smaller contractor. And then a shift for us in the last 2 years where we've had great success globally is that owner market. So the actual owner of the project. So LA World Airport, LAX Ultimate Owner is a client of ours.
Okay.
We acquired a company in 2018 in Australia, and we have very good relationships with a lot of the owner community there in the states, the 6 states across Australia. So big owners that are the ones really saying, we want to go build this big thing, that then pulls in the contractors that are performing the work and the owners that are managing the work. Because public projects, we all have seen the horror stories of things being overrun. McKinsey studies say 80% of all projects are over time and over budget. And that was the accepted norm. So that's really the problem we solve.
Makes sense. And then so I understand kind of, you alluded to it earlier, how it's kind of like a startup because you guys have you've got to be juggling 100 balls at once as you're heading in the right direction.
Yeah, it is. And not to get geeky on the software side, but the original solution was an on-premise, so install in your servers or in your PCs, technology solution. So now everything we do is cloud delivered. So we work with Microsoft Azure, best in the business from delivering cloud-based secure technology solutions, all cloud delivered across our solutions. So we had to make that shift from the old traditional way to sell software to what is now kind of how everything is done in the real world, virtual and cloud-based delivery. So that was also a big shift for us. Very
cool. And so Dan, talk to me about how over the years, even just since you've joined InEight, has your leadership, personal leadership, has that evolved? Has that changed? Have you been, a 10 out of 10 at that always? Or, talk about your personal leadership and how that's evolved.
Yeah, well, I don't know that I've ever hit 10 on the scale. previously or presently. So I guess self-awareness is part of that whole measure as well, Mike. But it really has changed, and knowing you well, I know a passion for you and your partner John Eichman as well is helping kind of build that. And it sounds like, you know, we're getting old and melancholy, but it really is fun to help build those teams. And I mentioned earlier, my passion has always been to build. So finding that bright talent in the industries we serve that serve those needs, that may be a little younger in their professional career, and helping them learn from, frankly, the skinned knees or the stubbed toes that I've come across, helping them kind of think through that growth piece, and then really letting their bright minds and talents take over and just get the heck out of their way. So, you know, that's been a life learning a bit from a management standpoint, is learning when to get out of the way and letting those bright superstars take over, and then just helping guide them along the way versus trying to do it. Big change for me over the last, call it, decade that I've been around.
No, that's good though, that you have the self-awareness to do that, because a lot of people struggle with, sometimes you got to know when to let your team fall on their face. Sometimes it's okay.
Yep, absolutely. And, you know, those of us been around for the world at some level, we all have maybe a bit of control issues at times, and kind of moving beyond that and letting that go, to your point. Because I'm amazed every day at the team that we've built, how just sharp they are, and the ideas and the energy and what they bring every single day, frankly, amazing to me. And they do things that I could never do in a lot of ways. So that part's awesome. Helping to build, helping grow them, and really then turning over for that next iteration of what InEight or any organization could be as we maybe fade back a bit.
Right. And then, so during the last couple of years with more and more, obviously, remote work, how have you done regarding kind of bringing your team, keeping your team tight without, you know, everyone's in a different world. Some youngsters are in a 1-bedroom apartment. They're stressed out. Some folks like me and you probably have no issue having this freedom. So what are you doing regarding that?
Yeah, and that has been a change for all of us globally, and we do have a global team now. So we are about 525 people, literally spread throughout the globe. We had a bit of a benefit of having some, or a good portion of our go-to-market team that was remote anyway. So we'd already had some familiarity. I can't say we did it really well though. So one of the things that I think has really carried us through, you know, going back now almost 6 years, when CEO and I, Jake Mockhold, CEO of InEight, one of the things that was clear is we needed to help build a culture that didn't exist. So you kind of pushed together several different companies. We acquired then 3 more 2 years later. So how do you embed that culture? And what is important? And what are those North Stars is your decision making? And that's part of building that culture, that North Star of these are the things that are important to us. So we had started that process already. And I will tell you, I think that has helped us tremendously from kind of that singularity of thought and focus. So we weren't just so widely out there. And then a lot of thought and effort into connecting virtually like we are right now. So 2.5 years ago, I don't know that, well, it was never Teams. I was not a big fan of WebEx or Zoom, and not to commercialize it all, but wasn't really a big fan, and that was our norm. The other thing that I think was really important to us, we built my employee experience team within the global team. And that's 15 people across disciplines, you know, the brightest and the best that are passionate about making sure that we are culturally connected and do the right thing. So we empowered that team to build that. So they'll do virtual lunches or lunch and learns, or dare I say, virtual happy hours at times that gets the team together. And it was really having a thoughtful approach to connecting people when in fact they might have been in that 1-bedroom apartment, maybe with a couple of roommates at times, you know, folks early in their career. And you got to be mindful of that and making sure people had that ability to reach out, because there were struggles for folks, and there still are. So having our HR team build here's where you can talk to someone, or here's where there's resource assistance, because there's tens of thousands and millions of other people going through the same struggles that you are. So you're not alone, kind of connectivity. So a bunch of different things, Mike, but those are some of the keys.
No, it makes sense. I love the empowerment. We need to do a better job of empowering, getting like a group of 5 to 10. We're a smaller firm,
Yeah.
just to focus on the culture. Our CEO is a young stud. Played a song a year and a half ago, uh, Margaritaville, about Coronaville or whatever, and that was one of the highlights of keeping people happy and feeling like we're a unit. But we need to do more of that for sure.
Yeah, and that's a great example. I think this is, I know for me personally, people I talk to, regardless of industry and space, but a big learning is, be a person. Don't hang on corporate pretense. Um, him singing Coronaville to Margaritaville is fantastic because then he's relatable, right? It's
Yeah.
just not some dude in an office somewhere that nobody sees.
Right.
It's a person.
Yeah.
So that
Cool.
credit to him. That's great for you guys.
Yeah, but now we're running so fast. We have to do that stuff like that more consistently. But I'm glad that you mentioned that. What about Dan? Any significant mentors in your life in the past and currently?
Yeah, I mean, no way I can give a roster of all the people that have been influenced, because there's many, and I'll do probably a poor job, and gosh forbid I leave someone off that has made a huge influence. But there's been a ton along the way. I'll tell you in the general category of that, there's been many, many, many that I've learned, how to approach things and thought process and how to do things. And I've also had really good professional and life learnings. Maybe those people that weren't the most awesome. So you learn a little bit of what doesn't work and maybe how to not treat people.
Great point.
And the negative side of that, not to dwell on that, I never, ever, ever do. I don't live in that part of the world. It's not gray sky in my world. Thankfully, I live in Arizona, so it's sunny most of the time. And I'd like to think that's my approach. But, you can take away from experiences that are suboptimal, be it a company you're at or the people or a person you're working with or, gosh forbid, working for. You can learn from all of those. So those life learnings and the ability to internalize that and play it forward, focus on the positives, and make sure those negative things didn't get repeated and that you don't emulate those. So I think there's a balance there.
No, that's a good point. John Eichman and I often refer to it as opposite day. What would our typical competition,
Yep.
old guys like us, how would they handle this? And then, let's try and think if the opposite makes sense, because often it does in our industry. So,
Yeah, credit to you guys. That's absolutely the kind of thing that keeps you moving forward and not stagnant. So good on you for that.
cool. What really, we all get up every day. Two things. Do you have a particular, and some people do, some don't. Do you have kind of a morning routine to get you in the right mindset? And if you're comfortable sharing it, I could picture you going in your robe, doing a triple espresso like myself, and then just flying out of the house. But what is your morning routine?
Well, again, let's leave robe visuals out of that for me. Mike, you're a fetching young man, so we won't leave that. But no one needs to visualize that. But yes, the Nespresso machine is my friend. I'm up pretty darn early, again, just because I like to kind of absorb from the world and read. So I'll dedicate an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, to reading kind of across the world. So, whether that be Wall Street Journal or London Times, or because I've got a awesome and growing team in Australia, newspapers, periodicals there, industry things. So I dedicate time to learning in the morning and trying to expand my horizons a little bit. And then I will tell you of late, early it was, still running a couple pups that run around here. We've got a couple rescue dogs, but I've gotten into the rowing world a bit, not on water, but, kind of in home, and whatever that is. It's going for a run, a walk, lifting weights, whatever it is. But, to stimulate the body a little bit, to keep the mind fresh, I think is really, really important. So that's kind of the every morning for me, Mike.
No, I love it. I love it. And then what do you, so looking at, call it 3 to 5 years down the road, which is hard to do sometimes, where do you see yourself? Where do you see InEight?
Yeah, so we do, one of the things we've entered as just a business discipline is, we started this 4 years ago, is a running 3-year plan that ties to the 7-year plan. So we do have the trajectory of where we think we're going to go, just from a kind of a metrics perspective, and that's ever changing because you can't see that far out. But we have a goal of, there's a bit of a unicorn number in the software world that once you attain a certain revenue number, which I'll leave generic for now, but people can sure find that when you hit that revenue number in the software world, that's a credit to the team that's helped build that. So we are very focused on that. We've been very fortunate. We've had through COVID, and maybe a little bit helping us is because companies that we serve have to be more intelligent, smarter, faster, use data better, where maybe before they didn't necessarily do that. So we've had really nice growth, and that trajectory looks to happen. So, continuing to serve the markets, continuing to advance what we do. Important to us is our customer feedback and constantly evolving the product that we put out. We didn't just build it, lock it down, send it out and say that is what it is. So we have a roadmap out years that talks about how we continue to evolve and help serve industries we serve through customer feedback and industry learning. So ongoing growth, no doubt. We know what our addressable markets look like globally. They're massive. And we're not out to say we're going to try to corner 20% of that market or 30% of that market. We have, I think, you have aggressive growth goals. And we'll see where it takes us. And gosh, 3 to 5 years from now, where I'm at, if I'm still able to jump on a screen and talk to somebody and still rolling, I'll be pretty happy with that. But we'll see. Whatever I'm personally doing, I know there's going to be some bright people that are in the InEight team and some yet to come who will be running things in a much more meaningful way than I will be if I look out 5 years. That's for sure.
Understood. No, it makes sense. So I'd like to ask some people about this, and so we'll probably, a lot of youngsters will probably watch this, some in private equity, some in the construction, some in technology, a lot of C-level people. But I think no matter what you do, you have to have certain influencing sales skills. You've obviously closed or been part of a team that's closed a bunch of deals throughout the years. 2 or 3 top of mind things, call it, regarding business development that are just, in your core, that it's weird. Some people it's not part of their core, or they just don't adapt it.
Yeah, and listen, there's lightning's not going to come from the sky, but these are great revelations to your point. One thing that I see consistently, and one thing we really focus on is we get very proud of the companies we work for and the products or services that we have. So too often it's the not really understanding what the customer, why they're even seeking to start, or why they might have had an inquiry. And we don't ask, right? We don't get under what the impetus was for them engaging with us in the first place. So, 3 hours after we've told them everything they possibly could want to know about our company or what we do, you probably turned them off at that point. So it is finding what is driving that and how we can help them, and then putting in whether it be a product or a service, embedding that in helping them solve that initial need. And then almost always you find additional ways that you can help them. So the discovery part of that process, I think, is a lost art, frankly, Mike, and it's really important. We just had our annual sales kickoff this year, and we had an outside speaker that did a great job talking about the art of storytelling in sales. And again, I think it's so important to be able to have that sort of resonance. You're not the only one that is facing this challenge. And here's others I've talked to. Some might be clients, some might not be, that have faced this same kind of decision curve. And here's how we've seen that go. Provide ideas. So provide them the ability to look better and smart as they're potentially and hopefully making that buying decision. And then if you play that all the way through to the end, it's really negotiating the best deal for both companies. So I will tell you, much to some people's chagrin, we certainly have a standard pricing model and all of those things, but we really try to tailor each deal to that customer's real interest. So going back all the way to the start, why are they making this buy decision in the first place? How can we tailor that to give them comfort they've made a good call and keep them around for years? So don't come at things with a cookie cutter only approach. Remain flexible based on those true business needs. I think it's just enormously important. Yeah,
no, I love it. Those are kind of great to wrap up with. I mean, discovery it's a lost art.
For sure.
Attention spans. I mean, I've caught myself not asking the questions I should ask. I'm worried about checking my phone or thinking about what's happening in 2 hours. So discovery and not yakking the whole time is a lost art. Storytelling, I totally agree. It's something I personally want to get better at in our firm. That's awesome that you guys did that. And then, you wrapped it up, call it just doing what makes sense for the client and having the proper onboarding, which only embeds them with you. It's
100%. Absolutely.
No, great stuff. What's one, I'm going to wrap it up with this one, maybe a curveball, but you could hit curveballs. What's one thing that I didn't ask that I don't know about you that might be of interest? Besides, I know you lived in Nebraska for a while. Give me something else.
I'll give you. I am a Cornhusker fan, by the way. So it's been a long, struggling couple of decades. I back that up with also being a Bears fan. So 1985 was a long time ago. So I'm clearly a glutton for punishment. I'll give you one funny one. Going all the way back to high school. So, a long time ago, but, at one point we would go to a bowling alley and we'd bowl. That was part of the physical education program we had. And, always being a giving person, and my eyes rolled, in case you couldn't tell that. Someone's ball got stuck in the ball return. So I, of course, am going to go down and help. So you walk down the alley, I lay down underneath the raised pins and pin setter to dislodge this ball that got stuck. I did dislodge the ball from the pin setter, but then hit the trigger that dropped on the pin. So for approximately 45 minutes, I was once pinned under a pin setter in a bowling alley. So I think that's a unique one that there's probably not a lot of people have had that experience.
No.
Does it resonate to anything we talked about today? Nah, but something unique.
No, I love it. And small world, the gentleman that runs our construction insurance practice played football at Nebraska. So just
sounds like a wonderful human being.
He's a good dude, Matt Holt. Yes, he is. Very good. Well, Dan, thank you so much. It was fun. I could talk to you forever, but I know you're a busy guy. So really appreciate your time and look forward to catching up again soon.
Thanks, Mike. Continued success to you and the team.
Thanks. Same to you, Dan. Bye.
Take care.